Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Saturday morning, the morning of Everton's Premier League fixture against Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. This is the game preview, Crystal Palace versus Everton. Another massive game for Sean Dyche, another massive game for the football club. One that Everton really can't afford to lose. Crystal Palace currently sitting in 12th in the Premier League table. A team that 2 or 3 weeks ago, I would have said we're in and amongst the number of sides that could possibly go down and that we're fighting for their survival this season. They've picked up a couple of good results in recent weeks, and I actually think Crystal Palace will be okay now. They're sitting on 36 points currently, as I said, 12th in the Premier League. There is a 9-point gap between Nottingham Forest on 27, who are currently sitting in 18th, Everton, of course, on 27, who are currently sitting in 17th, and Crystal Palace. So I actually think Crystal Palace will be okay, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I can't particularly see them struggling, to survive. 3 wins on the bounce always helps that situation. And of course, Everton coming off the back of a really disappointing 3-1 defeat against Fulham at Goodison Park last Saturday. A game that I still cannot seem to get my head around how bad that performance was, and just how uninterested and unbothered the Everton players looked last Saturday afternoon, considering the importance of that game and considering realistically how Everton could have comfortably won that game of football had we have wanted to. Let's be honest, Fulham had lost 4 games on the bounce. They weren't particularly looked interested in any of those 4 games. And I think if Everton had have been absolutely at it, then we'd have won the game, but we weren't, and the players didn't want it, and that is the most frustrating and I think worrying thing is at this stage in the season, in a home fixture, when you think of how bad our away record is and how bad our away record has been for the last 2-3 seasons, 2 seasons certainly, and you look at the fact that we've only got 3 home games remaining after that Fulham one, and 2 of them are against Newcastle and Manchester City. You would have really thought that those players would have, looked at that game last week as one that they absolutely must win, and no other result, would have been acceptable, but they clearly didn't, and it clearly wasn't looked at like that, and it leaves this game today with even bigger expectation on it. Crystal Palace away is always an extremely difficult game of football. As I said, you have a look at their most recent fixtures. Last time out, they beat Southampton away 2-0. Southampton getting a point yesterday at the Emirates as well, so another team in and around the relegation battle picking up points when Everton are not picking up points. You've got Crystal Palace beating Leeds United away from home 5-1 the week before. Their last home game was a victory against Leicester 2-1. And okay, they'd had a couple of defeats before that, but certainly 3 wins on the bounce for Crystal Palace. Obviously, they've got Roy Hodgson in there, so a new manager, will breathe an incredible amount of confidence in them, especially coming up against an Everton team that are A, woeful away from home, and B, coming off the back of 2 straight defeats and obviously a massively disappointing performance last weekend. Palace have had 9 wins this season, 9 draws, 13 losses, and that obviously leaves them on 36 points, played the same amount of games as Everton. A win today for Everton would be massive. It would lift us above Leeds United, just below West Ham United, who were on 31 points, and it would create that gap between Nottingham Forest, Leicester City, Southampton, as I mentioned. I don't think Southampton will survive this season, regardless of whether Everton go down or not. However, teams like Leicester City, teams like Nottingham Forest still could climb out of that, that relegation zone. We're picking up a win here and there, and ultimately a win today for Everton, would lift us away from those teams at least slightly. We still wouldn't be anywhere near safe, of course, but it would lift us away at least slightly. So, look, again, there's absolutely, no overestimating or there's no exaggerating how important a win would be today for Everton Football Club. It would be absolutely humongous. Is that likely? Probably not. Just given the fact that Crystal Palace have won 3 games on the bounce, that Everton haven't got a great record at Selhurst Park anyway, even in the best of seasons, and that, we looked so poor last week. And I remember sitting here last week and doing the preview to the Fulham game, and I remember saying that, expecting a reaction from the players, expecting a reaction from the manager, expecting Everton to go out last weekend and win that game against Fulham. Not only because we needed to win it, because of how important the game was in terms of our Premier League status and, in terms of the remaining fixtures that we've got left, but also win it just on the basis of how badly we played against Manchester United and the fact that they needed to show a reaction. They needed to show that, they could go out there the week later, learn from the mistakes and go and put a really good performance in against a team that had lost 4 games on the bounce, but we didn't do that. So I don't really want to sit here and say I expect a reaction from these Everton players today, because I expected the reaction from those Everton players last week and we didn't get it. So again, it's really, really difficult to try and put your finger on what we think we'll get from Everton today. What we need is a hard-working, battling, defensively solid performance against a really on-form team, an on-form team that have got a new manager in there, that's seemingly a flowing with confidence. Players like Eze, Elise, Zaha, who are obviously constant threats. We know this. The midfield players who are working hard, doing well. Jordan Ayew got a goal last week as well, and always threatens against Everton, constantly every time he plays there. Mateta, who can be a handful as well. Defensively, we're going to have to be absolutely spot on in this game for us to have any hope of getting anything out of it. But then you look at the options going forward. The manager spoke in his pre-game press conference on Thursday, was asked about Dominic Calvert-Lewin and said that we're going to, effectively we'll make the decision on whether or not he is available. Dom had put a picture on social media a couple of days ago saying bring on Saturday up the toffees. So, the assumption is that from his point of view, he's ready. From his point of view, he's fit. From his point of view, he's good to go. It's just about whether or not the manager and ultimately the fitness staff decide, whether or not he is ready. For me, I said it last week with the game against Fulham, and I'll say it again. We have not got many games of football left to play between now and the end of the season, and we are dangerously close to being relegated. And the parallels in comparing to last season are quite evidently there to see. But also, not only that, we haven't got a goal scorer like we had last season. We haven't got a sort of, I don't think there's a belief amongst the fan base like there was last season. Last season it was almost there's no way we can go down with Everton Football Club and those coach greetings and those bus welcomings. Don't get me wrong, I think everybody thought it was a very realistic possibility, but it was almost like no, we're going to do everything we can to get behind this team, to get behind these players, because there's no chance Everton are going down. Whereas this season, I think, because of how close it was last season and because we're in the exact same position this season, it's much more of a reality. And, I think whereas last season there was a lot of energy being focused on getting behind the team and battling with the team and fighting for the team, now I think a lot of that energy is, rightly by the way, being focused on driving the absolute clowns out of this football club that have put us in this position, one of which decided to release a letter last night on the eve, again, of one of our most important games of the season. What is it with Everton officials releasing these distasteful, disgraceful letters on the eve of really important games of football? What is it about them? Obviously, if you don't know what I'm referring to that absolutely shambolic letter that Bill Kenwright had written in response to the All Together Now campaign that was released yesterday. We are going to do a separate video on that because I could sit here and rip into Bill Kenwright for about 45 minutes, and it would have absolutely nothing to do with today's game against Crystal Palace. So we'll do that on a separate video. But yeah, again, what Bill Kenwright has shown there is that he doesn't care about Everton Football Club. He doesn't care about the fans. He doesn't care about the players. He doesn't care about the manager. He cares about himself. And if he did care about any of the above that I've just mentioned, then he wouldn't have released that letter on the eve of another really, really important game of football for Everton Football Club. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. There's no other way about it. The fella is an absolute self-centered, self-absorbed clown. Self-centered, self-absorbed clown. That's all he is. That's all he is. He shouldn't be anywhere near this football club. He's a disgrace. He's an absolute disgrace. But yeah, ultimately, Everton have still got a task. Everton have still got a job to do, and that job is to turn up at Selhurst Park and try and get something, try and get a result, try and put a performance in. And like I've just mentioned, if Dominic Calvert-Lewin is fit, for me, we haven't got enough time to be saying, well, we'll give him 20 minutes at the end of this game, and we'll ease him back in and this, that, and the other. If Everton are guaranteed, then I know they're not guaranteed, because nothing in life, or certainly not in football, is guaranteed. But if you were to say to me, right, Cam, Dom starts today, gets a couple of goals, Everton win the game, but then he picks up an injury and he's out for the rest of the season, I'm taking that risk, because I genuinely look at Everton's fixtures. I'd look at Everton's form, and I look at the way I feel watching Everton at the moment, and I don't know where our next 3 points is going to come from. So if you were to say to me, you can have that 3 points, but it would mean that Dominic Calvert-Lewin then goes out injured again, I'm taking it, because I don't look and think, well, we can ease him in because we can afford to do that, because we'll win those 2 or 3 games down the line if Dominic Calvert-Lewin is eased back into the equation. No. If he's fit and he's available and he's ready, he is absolute. And a lot of people don't like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and a lot of people don't think he's very good, and a lot of people don't think he's as good as, the hype suggests or whatever. One thing I don't think any Evertonian can sit here and disagree with me on is that he is unbelievably better than Neil Maupay at being that striker that we need to get us goals. And he's unbelievably better than Ellis Sims as well. Whether you love Ellis Sims or not, he's a young lad, he's learning. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is light years ahead of him in what we need him to do. Whether you like that or not. Simple as that. And the reality is we need, if he's fit and he's available, then for me he starts today with absolutely no hesitation, no anything. If he's fit and available, he starts, because we need to pick up the points, and ultimately we can't afford to let another game pass us by where we don't pick up points, and that's what we're doing at the moment. We're letting games pass us by where we're not picking up points, and ultimately we are in a position where we're going to get to a stage when there isn't any left. There isn't any points left to be picked up. There isn't any games left to win. There isn't any games left to get something out of. And then we're sitting there, championship team, thinking, how have we got ourselves in this position? So, for me, if he's fit, if he's available, he starts. Whether or not he is fit and available, we'll wait and see, of course. But, yeah, this is, we all know how difficult this game of football will be. Palace are a really well-oiled machine, and have been for a number of years. They've flirted with relegation, but for the most part they've been absolutely fine. And it will take a lot for Everton to go and win this game of football, but ultimately we certainly cannot afford to lose. I think if we get a point today, generally I don't think many people would be upset with that given the circumstance, but if we lose today, it would be an absolute disaster, especially given Southampton have just picked up a point yesterday, and Leeds could pick up a point today against Fulham, or points today against Fulham. Forest might pick up points against Liverpool, and this, that, and the other. You don't know. It's a humongous game of football today, and one that Everton simply cannot afford to just let pass us by like we did last week. We can't afford to allow that to happen. If we can win it, great, but if we can't win it, don't lose it. It's as simple as that, and that's down to Sean Dyche, and Sean Dyche needs to take responsibility as well, because I think managerially, I don't even know if that's a word, but I'm making it a word. I think some of his decisions he's made in the last couple of games have been really, really, really poor, like really, really poor, and that needs to change. He can't afford to do that again. Today, he can't afford to do that again. Away from home against Crystal Palace. Connor's donated £5 to the stream. Thank you very much. He says, Cam, do you honestly think these awful players will keep us up? We're going down. I've accepted it. When Fulham beat us, I was laughing. Well, I'd like to hope so, mate. And if we can't hope, then what have we got? To be honest, if I didn't have the hope, I wouldn't watch today. If I'm being honest, I'd just think, why would I let that ruin me weekend when I don't believe that I'll get anything positive from it anyway. So I'll just, I'll look at the score and I'll just move on with my day. But I do believe and I do hope, and ultimately, as the saying goes, sometimes it's the hope that kills you, and it didn't kill us last season. We managed to stay up, and thankfully. Will it kill us this season? Only time will tell, but I do have hope. I'll admit I do have hope, and the day that I stop having hope is probably the day that I just go, do you know what? I'm just gonna move on and watch something else and spend my weekends doing something else now, because if you haven't got hope watching your football team, whether it be hope you win a trophy, whether it be hope you stay in the league, whether it be hope you win a game, then what's the point? But yeah, as I said, it will be a difficult game of football. There's absolutely no doubt in it. My team today would be Jordan Pickford in goal. I would go with... I honestly don't know. I think choosing between Ben Godfrey and Vitaly Mykolenko at the moment it's not a great choice at left back. I'd probably go with Mykolenko, even though I think he's atrocious. Centre backs, I'd put Yerry Mina back in there with James Tarkowski personally, just to add a bit of height, a bit of physical presence, somebody that can deal with the fast attackers of Crystal Palace, because I think the three of them, Eze, Elise and Zaha, could have a field day against Michael Keane. Tarkowski next to him. I'd have Patterson at right back, because he is the natural right back, and we know Seamus Coleman isn't ready and available yet. Midfield, I'd have Onana, Garner, Onana if fit, Garner, and James Garner. I'd actually start James Garner because I think he was impressive last week. And then I'd have Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Damari Gray and Dwight McNeil, probably. Even though I think Damari Gray's been awful. And maybe I'll put Iwobi in the midfield, actually, instead of Onana if Onana's injured. I don't know. Look, the reality is, the most of them players played last week and were absolutely embarrassing. They were horrendous. And they can't afford to be that bad again today, because Fulham wiped the floor with us after losing 4 games on the bounce. Palace will just embarrass us if we play like that today. Let's hope that we don't. But yeah, massive game. Hopefully Everton can go out and get something. We need to get something. As I said, we'll be back with the instant match reaction and the play ratings after it, so don't forget to look out for those. Yeah, we are going to do a video talking about Bill Kenwright's letter over the coming days as well, so look out for that one. It will probably be 30 minutes of me screaming and shouting about how much of an idiot Bill Kenwright is, but some people like to watch that type of stuff. But anyway, we are going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed it, please hit the like button. It does only take a second. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. If you're watching the YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below. Massive thank you all for watching, and we'll see you later.